What's up, everybody? Welcome to Let's Cool One with your host here, Jack Macklin. Thanks everyone for joining me today. We have a few things to hit. It's obviously been a crazy last few weeks with the amount of masters that we've lost in this music, from Roy Haynes, Lou Donaldson to Quincy Jones. So we're going to spend a little time talking about them. Some gigs that have been happening, some highlights from the Chicago scene that I want to bring up. So the Art of the Jam session, and I wanted to go over a couple important ballads that I think young musicians should have in their repertoire as well. So start with some weekend happenings here. Some gigs I wanted to highlight from other people. Is definitely at the Green Mill this past weekend. I know when this episode comes out, these gigs will have already happened, but I want to highlight them anyway because they're important bands that you guys should be aware of. But at the Green Mill this past weekend is the Joe Policastro Trio. I'm excited to check that out. I think I'm going to check that out tonight. It's Michael Patrick Avery, Dave Miller on guitar, and Joe Policastro playing bass. My buddy Alejandro Salazar is playing I think they plays a couple weekends a month at Dorian's, so I'm going to check that out too. Went to this new club last night here in Chicago that was really killing. It was called the Lemon Chicago. See the Greg Archery Trio. That was really cool. They sounded great. Trying to book my band there, so keep an eye and ear out for those dates ahead. And then the Jazz Showcase, though, the great, wonderful Kendrick Scott is playing with the Columbia Big Band there at the Jazz Showcase. So that's always a really cool gig. I've seen that in the past. And I think Kendrick comes and plays with them every year, and they do like a weekend at the showcase. So that's really cool for the students over there to get that experience. So that's wonderful. And of course, my regular gig that I've been doing every Thursday at Big Mini was pretty cool this week. They had a pretty nice crowd over there. I think I'm bringing my band in next week. I think the trio is going to play there. So if you're listening to this, the week of, this week. So I think it's going to be like the 22nd or 23rd on the Thursday. I think I'm bringing my trio in there. So that's going to be sweet. We had a great time last time. It was really packed at Big Mini. I mean, it's kind of a big spot, so it doesn't really get packed, but there's a consistent line for mini golf there. The mini golf is pretty sick, so definitely go check it out. It's a vibe and a half over there. So yeah, those are some gigs I wanted to highlight. There's always, Andy's always has some good stuff going on, and Winters and Constellation, Hungry Brain. There's a lot of clubs here in Chicago that are doing really cool things. So yeah, I mean, brings me kind of to my point too, is like booking at these places. I'm like as a musician who relatively recently moved back here to Chicago, I'm still trying to figure out how to ingratiate myself into these venues and with these people. And yeah, it's like, what are you supposed to do if you want to play at these venues? You just wait for someone to call you? Do you get a project together? Do you to get a website and have to do a press kit and all these things to send to the venues? Because it's just, obviously it's probably good to have a press kit and a website and all that stuff, but still, it's just like a jazz gig, and you and going through all this time and paying monthly fees for your website and doing all this just to play one gig for the original music that you wrote. So like that, all that stuff is pretty, finding balancing the line. I mean, something that's always worked for me that I kind of need to go back to and remind myself is just like the face-to-face connection, with a lot of these people, is like knowing that a lot of people have heard me play or played in different settings. It's just that, like, if you want to play at the Green Mill or Dorian's or something like that here in Chicago, it's like nothing beats a face-to-face connection. I mean, Dorian's is cool because they're hiring a lot of young people. Like Alejandro is a young dude. Who else has played there? Armand Sangalang's played there. He's kind of a young guy, and so they're giving young people a chance. So it's definitely possible for like these young people and young musicians here in Chicago to get an opportunity to play. And this goes for everywhere in any scene, you know, it's like nothing really beats that face-to-face connection that you build and that relationship that you build with these people around you to help get the gigs. And that's what we did at Big Mini, you know. It's like when I'm playing there, it's, you know, Alithio helped me get that gig there. But I think a big reason why it's sustained and been going on for about 2 months now, maybe a little over than that, is the relationship that I made with those people. Everyone in there is my friend now. We go and talk about our week, whatever. You know, we're all buddies in there now, and it's like I built that over time. So it's like, you know, really important to build up that relationship and those connections with your peers and also with venues. I feel like the ones with venues go super understated. So yeah, so that's, you know, something that I'm going to do this week is try to get back to my roots and just try to develop some of these connections, go into places and just talk to them, you know, just be like, hey, you know, I have my own group. I'm looking for some more opportunities to play. You know, if you have any open dates, you know, I would love to explain my stuff to you and show you my stuff. So yeah, getting back to the roots and doing these face-to-face connections. You know, another way that people often get gigs is, you know, introducing themselves to other people and playing with other people at what we call a jam session. You know, and jam sessions are really interesting because sometimes they go really well, sometimes they go really bad. A jam session is where, you know, a group of musicians gets up on stage randomly, sometimes never having played with each other before, and they call a tune out of the jazz repertoire, a standard, and they play it together and they jam on it. Hence the jam session. And everyone kind of has a turn improvising over the form. And, you know, usually, you know, Ted Sirota at the Hungry Brains, one of the best jam sessions here in Chicago, he always jokes and is like, you know, who's winning the jam session, you know, keeping score, who has the best score, even though that's not what we're doing. And we're not keeping score, but it's pretty funny to see that because it's kind of like, yeah. But anyway, that's where all the musicians kind of meet each other. But I mean, there's a kind of a misconception about jam sessions because, yeah, you meet other musicians there, but you don't really get gigs at jam sessions. Like, you know, I think out of all the gigs that I've gotten in my career, like I've gotten probably like 4 or 5 from a jam session, you know, out of like the hundreds and hundreds of gigs that I've played. You know, it's like, yeah, maybe I met somebody at a jam session, we ended up playing, and it's like, it's been good for that. You know, you meet a bunch of people and you play with them outside of the session. But, you know, I got one here in Chicago when I recently moved back just from a random jam. And like, you know, the guy told me ahead of time, he's like, yeah, you never know when you hire somebody from a jam session, because it's like you just play with them one time and they sound good. But then it's like you jam on you go to a gig and it's like, oh man, this cat only knows like that one tune, and then he called it the jam session, or like, you know, could go a lot of different ways. But yeah, so a jam session, you know, jam session etiquette and things like that it's important to do a jam session, but it's not going to be the end all be all with like getting gigs. And I have to remind myself that too. It's like, you know, it's important to go and out and being part of the scene, hit the jam session, but just because you went to the jam and people heard you, it's like those aren't the guys, you know, booking gigs at venues. Those are just other guys waiting to get called. You know, a lot of bass players, drummers, and like, you know, fortunately and unfortunately, if you play saxophone or guitar or piano, it's like you guys are the leaders most of the time. So it's like, yeah, we can, you know, guitar, saxophone, piano players can like pick and choose which drummer and bass player they want, and that's usually a pretty sought after thing. And that's pretty, I'm sure bass players and drummers gets lots of gigs from jam sessions, but you know, not as many, or guitar players and saxophone players probably don't get as much. It's more of like a camaraderie thing, like hanging out with your peers and developing a relationship. And jam session etiquette, I mean, usually it's you go up there and play one tune, 1 or 2 songs, and you leave. I mean, if you play anything more than 2 songs, you know, sometimes it gets a little like, gets a little dicey because you just want to be doing like the two songs and then kind of getting out and giving us opportunity for everyone else to play. When you do more than two songs, it's kind of like, unless you're like hanging out with all your buddies and you're just trying to play, or you're young, or you're just trying to get to know people. But the jam session is way more about the camaraderie than it is showing how many licks or showing how many things you could play. So that's important to keep in mind, is like the camaraderie aspect of a jam session, and especially when you get called up there and things like that. It's way more chill when you could just like take your horn out of your case and walk up there and play on the tune you want to play. I mean, I guess that's kind of like the New York way, but that's when it's most chill. But like that's also like crosses the bridge of being like the vibiest type of vibe. But who cares, man? Whatever. So yeah, the art of the jam session, it's always a tricky thing, but I encourage everybody here to go out there and just try to develop some camaraderie, say hi to some new people, go out of your comfort zone. I know I need to remind myself that all the time. So that's going to bring me into the last week. We talked about our album of the week with Jacob. We talked about Songbook by the great Kenny Garrett. Still, that we're going to transition into a new album of the week. And the new album of the wrap up my points about Songbook last week is for anyone who listened to it or knows the record. It's just an amazing masterpiece. Again, like I was saying last week, and every song is awesome. Kenny Garrett's compositions on there are second to none. The band sounds amazing. There's really just not much else to be said about how amazing of a record that is. It's just super killing, and Kenny Garrett just delivers a timeless masterpiece there with that record, to where it's that was out before I was born, like we were talking about last week, but it's still like super hip and super modern, and I still think people are diving into the way that sounds as like a piano-based jazz quartet, and like that's kind of the blueprint for how, a lot of piano-based jazz quartets sound today. I know I love those songs. I mean, the house that Nap built. I mean, if you guys that don't know that one particularly, that one really sticks out to me because it has this really bright sound to it, where it's like, it's descending in, I think every 16 bars or something like that. It goes down a half step, but the melody goes up a half step, which is kind of crazy. And it gives this crazy bright sound to it. I think it's written for Nat Reeves, the bass player, the house that Nat built, but it gives a crazy sound. And yeah, it's just an incredible tune, an incredible record. Taking things away from that about how he is able to make something sound so bright with just what key it's in, and changing keys, and the forms that he uses are so, the form in November 15th, which was just the other day. That's November 16th. So November 15th was yesterday. The form in that tune is pretty incredible, but it's all about the melody, how strong the melody is there. He has a couple 3-bar sections in there. And it's like, I think right at the end, he has like this 3-bar section, or like, I guess you could say 7-bar, because it's 3 bars and 4 bars. But that's incredible how he really just manipulates form in there. And then obviously the improvisation on the record is insane. So yeah, that's Songbook by Kenny Garrett. So I wanted to get into the new record of the week, which is going to kind of tie into talking about these masters that just passed away. But the record I wanted to highlight again is a Roy Haynes record, and this Roy Haynes record is everyone should know this record. It's Now He Sings, Now He Sobs by Chick Corea. It's obviously not a Roy Haynes record, but Roy Haynes plays drums on it, and this is just a kind of a staple for a piano trio. Yeah, Roy Haynes, he just passed away on November 12th at the age of 99 years old, which is pretty incredible. That he made it that long, you know? It's like what a master to make it that long, and he was still playing his instrument when he died, and it's the longevity of his playing is just timeless. But Now He Sings, Now He Sobs is the second studio album by Chick Corea. It features Miroslav Vichis on bass and drummer Roy Haynes. Yeah, this was originally recorded in 1968, March 16, 19, and 27 in New York City. And it's a post-bop type of record, but they do a bunch of cool tunes. They do a Thelonious Monk tune on there. They do Panonica. They do Matrix, obviously a blues. They do Steps, What Was. That's a long tune, sounds amazing. But Roy had this amazing ability, and it's like really showcased on this album, that he could play post-bop, he could play bebop, he could play free, he could play avant-garde, he could play rock, he could kind of do it all. And he's just one of the giants that laid the footprint to jazz drumming. I mean, you know, you have Elvin, you have Art Blakey, you have Kenny Clark, you know, and you have Roy Haynes, because he played Max Roach too, but you know, Roy played with Charlie Parker. He played with John Coltrane. He played with Thelonious Monk. He played with Chick Corea, obviously. He played with all these wonderful people. You know, it says right here, yeah, he played with Lester Young. You know, Lester Young is pretty freaking incredible to play with. So I think that's pretty. From 47 to 49, worked with Lester Young. 49 to 52, he was in Charlie Parker's quintet. He recorded with pianist Bud Powell. You know, played with Stan Getz. Played with singer Sarah Vaughan. You know, so he was just. And also he, like it says here, that he was. A tribute song was recorded by Jim Keltner and Charlie Watts of Rolling Stone, and he appeared on stage with the Allman Brothers in 2006 and Paige McConnell of Fish in 2008. So he also, you know, and Jeff Tain Watts is actually funny. He was the drummer of the Songbook record we were just talking about. He is quoted saying, "Age seems to have just passed him by," on Roy Haynes. But, you know, this goes to show you that he was played with Fish, played with the Allman Brothers, played with Lester Young, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, played with everybody. So that's pretty incredible that Roy Haynes, you know, just give it up to him for being just one of the most amazing, prolific jazz drummers of all time. So, yeah, a little bit more about Now He Sings, Now He Sobs is the whole track list. You know, people should check this one out. But the original release is the original, I guess they added some more tracks from in the 1988 release. But the original release was Steps, What Was, Matrix, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, Now He Beats the Drum, Now He Stops, The Law of Falling and Catching Up. And then the CD release had Matrix, Now My One and Only Love, Now He Beats the Drum, Bossa, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, Steps, What Was, Fragments, Windows is a big one from there. I think that's one of Chick's first recordings of Windows. I know that one the best. Panonica by Monk, Samba Yantra, I don't know, The Law of Falling and Catching Up, and Gemini. So yeah, so Roy Haynes just absolutely kills it on this album. Chick Corea absolutely kills it. This is just a milestone album for piano trio. I think that Chick's articulation on here is crazy. You know, okay, so that's the album of the week. You know, we're going to talk a little bit more about it next week, but I encourage everyone to go listen to it and check out Roy Haynes' drumming on there. And obviously, Chick Corea sounds amazing on here, and I can't help but to think that that's just a big part of Roy Haynes' doing. You know, I think Roy Haynes had the amazing ability, obviously playing with so many giants, to just make everyone sound so much better. You know, not saying that Chick needed to sound any better because he's already amazing, but to have the ability to make everyone who you're playing with on the bandstand rise up to a certain level is just amazing. I wanted to go ahead and read this Instagram post by the great Nicholas Payton, who had the opportunity to play with Roy Haynes. And I think this is really cool, because he talks a little bit about what it was like playing with him. Roy Haynes' nickname was Snap Crackle. And so here's the post. Nick said, "Old Snap Crackle went on home. Roy Haynes, such a force, an ecosystem all on his own. Held the cradle of this music in his hands for nearly a century. Boston's own, but he belonged to the universe. A seeker and teller of the truth, swing and originality personified, hip, cool, fly, ahead of his time, and right on time. From Louis Armstrong to Lester Young, from Bird to Train, from Chick Corea to Pat Metheny, he has the range. There is a lifetime in one of his quarter notes. He single-handedly changed me musically more than any other one artist. Birds of a Feather collaborated my time feel without saying a word, but through his beat showed me a world of possibility. I can never thank you enough, Baba. I can only recall how much of a blessing it was to share space with you in this realm. You danced in eternity in your 99 years, and I wish you peace as you fly back into the fold. Royalty, grace, style, class, soul, love. Hashtag BAM, hashtag Black American Music." Yeah, that's just pretty incredible how, Nick said, who's a modern master of today, said that Roy Haynes single-handedly changed the way that he plays the quarter note, which is pretty deep to think about. I feel like that's just crazy, So I wanted to highlight a little bit more about Roy Haynes and just kind of talk about him in Above and Beyond the album of the week. Like Nick said, he was born in Boston, died in New York City just a few days ago. Roy Haynes became an important leader of the African American community of Massachusetts, working with Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement, representing Roxbury in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and for 45 years serving as a pastor of the 12th Baptist Church, where King had been a member while he pursued his doctoral. So, above and beyond being a jazz drumming master, he was also a civil rights activist. Which working alongside Martin Luther King, which is also pretty incredible because he's, as well as being one of the best jazz drummers in the world, he is a civil rights activist as well. That's just crazy. I'm just aspiring to be anything like that. So, Roy Haynes, you are just, one of the best people to ever have walked this world. So a little bit more. From 53 to 58, he toured with singer Sarah Vaughan and recorded with her. In the 50s, he was given the name Snap Crackle. I think Snap Crackle probably is because his snare drum sounded like a snap crackle. If I were to take a guess, Haynes led bands including the Hip Ensemble. That's a pretty cool band name, Hip Ensemble. So he's done everything. In 2008, Haynes lent his voice to the open world video game Grand Theft Auto 4 to voice himself as the DJ for the fictional classic jazz radio station, Jazz Nation Radio 108.5. His last album, Royalty, was released in 2011. One of my favorite albums from Roy Haynes, can get into talking about some of his work, is his album with Kenny Garrett, Dave Kokoski, Roy Hargrove. I forget who plays. I think might be Christian McBride. I don't know if it is though, but that's called Birds of a Feather, where they do all Charlie Parker songs, and just how fitting, he played with Bird. Enough said. He's on Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. Like we talked about, he played with Eric Dolphy, Far Cry. He's played with John Coltrane, Newport 63. Like Minds, Chick Corea and Gary Burton, Dave Holland, Pat Metheny. Blues and the Abstract Truth, which is pretty crazy. That's an amazing record. The 5-spot sessions with Thelonious Monk with Johnny Griffin, that's recorded in 58. So, again, playing with all these heroes is just nothing short of amazing. He's a true innovator. Some of these comments are, he's a true innovator. He has his own style. Listens to his live record with Coltrane. No one sounds like him. Right. No one sounds like him. So another crazy fact is that Roy was the grandfather to amazing virtuosic drummer today, Marcus Gilmore. Marcus Gilmore is a leading drummer and kind of changing the way that drums are played in a modern sense. I think he's a younger guy, probably not over 40, I would say, but he maybe he is over 40. Who knows? Marcus Gilmore, having Roy Haynes be his grandfather, started playing drums at obviously a really young age. So he just learned from the best. What else is there to say? Roy Haynes, he's just a total beast. Just insane. I would say we could have more than one, but The Birds of a Feather is definitely an album of the week at some point, if not this week, which is, Chick Corea. He definitely will be in the future. He's played with all these. I wish that we could take a listen to some of his drumming together, but you're gonna have to do that on your own, just so we don't violate any copyright rules. But he has so many of his own. He was a band leader as well. He released what looks like at least 15 albums, which it probably says. He released 1 Grammy awarding drummer. He won with the McCoy Tyner Blues for Coltrane. He was on that. Best Jazz Instrumental Performance. Won a Grammy in 2000 for Best Jazz Instrumental Performance for Gary Burton's Like Minds. Won a Downbeats Critic Poll. Won multiple Downbeats Critic Polls in the Downbeat Hall of Fame. Downbeats Critic Poll. Lifetime Achievement Award. Jazz Foundation of another Grammy Award for a Lifetime Achievement Award. So Roy Haynes is just, there's not really much else to say. Has tons of records, tons of Grammy nominated, played with everybody, just a jazz master. So if you're not hip to Roy Haynes and you play the drums, definitely check him out. We could go more in depth to his life, but he was a political activist, a drummer, everything, all of the above. So Roy Haynes. So I wouldn't feel right if I didn't shed light on these other 2 musicians as well, Lou Donaldson and Quincy Jones. Lou Donaldson was a saxophone player, but Quincy Jones in particular, he's a multiple Grammy-winning producer, also an incredible musician and producer. He worked from everyone from Wes Montgomery to George Benson to Prince to Michael Jackson. He produced Thriller, which was a platinum record, won tons of Grammys, arranged multiple albums, wrote so much great music. Quincy Jones, go check him out too. I wanted to highlight Roy Haynes a little bit more today, and get into some of Quincy Jones' records later. But Roy Haynes was just, he's a bop drummer at heart. And I feel like he just deserves a lot of respect from us here at Let's Cool One. But I wanted to finish up today's episode with a little segment. Did last week I asked Jake about 5 tunes that he would play, or 5 standards that he thinks are necessary to play. And so I wanted to do a little segment now. I'm going to do 3 ballads that I feel like young musicians and every musician should know. So the first ballad, of course, is by the great Thelonious Monk, entitled Ruby My Dear. Ruby My Dear is a song by Thelonious Monk. One of my favorite versions of this is from Monk solo. It's him riding an airplane and the scarf's up in the wind. He does something really cool on here where he plays the A-A-B-A, but then he does like B-A, B-A, and the last time he plays it, it's like the B is like double as fast in a way, but it's like super weird. It's super beautiful. This song was written for Ruby Richardson. Ruby My Dear is a ballad written by Thelonious Monk. He wrote the song for his first love, Ruby Richardson. Monk recorded it both solo and with a band, a notable one being with John Coltrane. He also recorded it on Monk's Music, which was a record of the week a few weeks back, where Coleman Hawkins is playing it. So Ruby My Dear, another great another ballad that I wrote on here is Someone to Watch Over Me by George Gershwin. And this is another amazing ballad, obviously. The words are amazing. The words are super awesome. There's a verse to it. You know, George Gershwin, one of America's best performers. So many people have recorded this tune, including Ella Fitzgerald, from Blossom Dearie to Frank Sinatra to Samara Joy to George Gershwin. Chick Corea has a version. Chet Baker has a version. You know, Paul Motion to so many people. It was written for the musical Oh Hey in 1926, with that part originally sung on Broadway by English actress Gertrude Lawrence while holding a rag doll in a sentimental solo scene. So this song has been around for 98 years, approaching 100 years soon here, but just a song that's been around forever. And there's a story, my old professor, Dennis Carroll, DePaul, told me the story that I think it was some South American gang, like some dude had to sing Someone to Watch Over Me at karaoke night, and he screwed up the words, so they killed him. You know, it seems pretty intense. So Someone to Watch Over Me definitely is very serious to a lot of people. So that's a ballad that I feel like most people should know, you know, singers especially, but instrumentalists. It has a beautiful verse to it, has a beautiful melody, has a beautiful chord changes. It's really important. I played that song on my senior recital at DePaul, so I feel like that's a really important one. And last but not least, I have Everything Happens to Me. I know this song from Charlie Parker with Strings, you know, and I feel like that's just one of the most beautiful songs. You know, it was written by Matt Dennis. Notable versions: Chet Baker on It Could Happen to You, Duke Jordan, Nat King Cole, Bill Evans, Ella Fitzgerald, Earl Gardner, Charlie Parker, Stan Kenton, Julie London, Branford Marsalis, Thelonious Monk. It's also one of those other tunes that's just been recorded tons and tons of times, and just an amazing song. If you guys haven't heard Charlie Parker with Strings, I'd recommend checking that out, because Everything Happens to Me. The words on there are also beautiful. You know, let me just read the first verse to give you guys a hint of what the words are. So it's, I make a date for golf, and you can bet your life it rains. I try to give a party, and the guy upstairs complains. I guess I'll go through life just catching colds and missing trains. Everything happens to me. Yeah, it goes on here. So I recommend you guys check out the lyrics. But yeah, this song was also written in 1940 as a pop standard. I mean, these are the tunes, you know, you guys have to understand that, like, these tunes and most of the standards that we play today are just like what was popular at the time. You know, this was their pop music. It's kind of like singing Katy Perry or something today, you know, Taylor Swift. These were the pop tunes of the time. These are the tunes that were on the radio, you know. These are the tunes that people heard, the cats heard, and they just played them, you know. And so Everything Happens to Me was a pop standard at the time, and people just, you know, people just took them and started playing them, from Sinatra to Charlie Parker, you know. So yeah, those are my 3 ballads that I think you guys should check out and learn. I hope to hear on some gigs soon. But yeah, that's this week's episode of Let's Cool One. So I'm glad everyone tuned in to listen to this. I'm excited that this keeps on going. I think we're getting better and better every week. So we have a nice little routine now some things that we do. So thank you everyone for joining in. Please like and subscribe to Alithio, and give us 5-star review if you're liking what you're hearing on Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. Give Jack Macklin a follow on Instagram. Come out to one of my shows. Look at my website, jackmacklin.com. Maybe even buy some of my music if you guys want to. But yeah, we're just stoked for listening. You know, rest in peace, Roy Haynes. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.